The wedding of Khalid Al Mansoor and Layla Haddad was the kind of event that captured headlines across the Middle East. Khalid, the 33-year-old heir to a vast real estate empire, had always been known for his charm, sophistication, and disciplined lifestyle. He was a man who seemed to have it all: money, status, and a spotless public image. Layla, on the other hand, was a rising Lebanese influencer whose beauty and charisma had won her hundreds of thousands of followers online. Her posts, filled with designer clothes and motivational quotes, portrayed her as the embodiment of grace and ambition. When their engagement was announced, the internet went into a frenzy, calling them the region's perfect couple. Their wedding was held in a private desert resort outside Doha, attended by royalty, business magnates, and international celebrities. The event was lavish in every sense. Crystal chandeliers shimmered under the open sky, luxury cars lined the venue, and fireworks painted the night as the couple exchanged vows. Photographers captured every moment, and within hours, images of the ceremony flooded social media. People admired how perfectly they fit together, unaware of the quiet unease that lingered behind Khalid's poised smile. To everyone watching, it seemed like a union of love and destiny. But for Khalid, the marriage was more of an obligation than a dream. His family had long pressured him to settle down and secure the family legacy with an acceptable partner. Layla, beautiful and popular, fit the image they wanted for him. He respected her, but his feelings were distant, almost mechanical. Layla, unaware of his inner conflict, believed she had found her soulmate. She shared emotional captions on social media, calling him her forever. Behind the carefully curated posts, she was genuinely in love. When they departed for their honeymoon in Dubai, Layla was excited and full of hope. She imagined long walks on the beach, candlelit dinners, and quiet moments that would bring them closer as husband and wife. Khalid, however, viewed the trip differently. To him, it was a necessary performance, another chance to maintain appearances in the public eye. He arranged for luxury suites, exclusive dining, and private yacht rides, ensuring everything looked perfect from the outside. The couple arrived at one of Dubai's most prestigious hotels, where staff greeted them with utmost reverence. Layla was enchanted by the view from their suite overlooking the Palm Jumeirah. The golden sunlight reflected off the sea, and for a moment she felt she was living her dream. She took photos, shared snippets online, and spoke of love and gratitude. Khalid smiled in the pictures, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion and detachment. As the days passed, Layla began noticing small things: his frequent phone calls, his habit of stepping out at night for business matters, and his lack of emotional warmth. Still, she convinced herself that newlyweds needed time to adjust. She told herself that love was patient, that he would open up with time. What she didn't know was that beneath the surface of her fairy tale, a dark secret waited to be uncovered, one that would shatter her dreams and turn her honeymoon into a nightmare that the world would never forget. The honeymoon in Dubai began with elegance and excitement, but within days, the atmosphere in the suite shifted from romantic to uneasy. Layla noticed how Khalid was constantly distracted, his phone never leaving his hand. He often excused himself for sudden business calls or late-night meetings. She wanted to believe him, but a growing sense of doubt crept into her heart. Even during their expensive dinners overlooking the city skyline, he seemed distant, replying with half-hearted smiles and short answers. She would talk about plans for their future, children, travel, home decoration, but his gaze would drift to his phone screen. At first, Layla blamed herself. She thought perhaps she was being too emotional or expecting too much. After all, Khalid had always been a quiet man. Maybe he simply needed time to adjust to marriage. But as the days passed, the small signs of secrecy became impossible to ignore. He would receive messages late into the night and turn away to read them. When she asked who it was, he would answer vaguely, saying it was work-related. The more he avoided her questions, the more her suspicion grew. One evening, Khalid returned unusually late, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't his usual brand. Layla sat in silence, watching him undress, her heart pounding with questions she couldn't ask. When he finally fell asleep, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind swirling with doubt. The love she had imagined was starting to crumble under the weight of secrets she didn't understand. The man she had married no longer felt like the same person. The following afternoon, fate handed her the truth she wasn't ready for. Khalid was in the shower, and his phone, placed carelessly on the nightstand, buzzed repeatedly. The screen lit up with a name she didn't recognize: Omar. At first, she assumed it was one of his employees, but curiosity got the better of her. She hesitated, then unlocked the phone using the fingerprint Khalid had once registered for her convenience. The messages that appeared before her eyes made her blood run cold. They weren't about business. They were deeply intimate, filled with affection, longing, and a history that stretched far beyond their wedding. The tone of the messages revealed a truth that shattered every illusion she had about her husband. Omar wasn't just a friend or colleague. He was Khalid's lover. Layla's hands shook as she scrolled further, reading messages exchanged just days before the wedding, expressing fear that she will find out. The reality hit her like a storm. The marriage she had believed in was built on a lie. The man she thought loved her had been living a secret life all along. Her chest tightened and tears blurred her vision. She quickly took screenshots and emailed them to herself, afraid that Khalid might delete them later. When Khalid came out of the shower, she couldn't look at him the same way. The air between them was heavy with unspoken truth. He noticed the tension but dismissed it, unaware of what she now knew. Layla spent the rest of the evening in silence, her thoughts consumed by betrayal. She didn't know what her next step would be, whether to confront him, expose him, or quietly leave. But deep inside, she understood that her dream marriage was over. What she didn't realize was that her discovery had already placed her in grave danger. The days following Layla's discovery were filled with unbearable tension. She moved around the hotel suite like a stranger, her smiles forced and her words few. Khalid sensed something had changed, though she said nothing. The warmth she once showed was gone, replaced by a quiet distance that unsettled him. He tried to focus on work, on maintaining his composure, but he could feel her eyes watching him, searching for answers. Deep down, he knew the truth had slipped through his fingers. The calm life he had built on secrets was starting to collapse. Layla barely slept. Every night she lay awake replaying the messages in her mind, imagining the years Khalid had spent living a double life. Her heart ached not only from betrayal but from confusion. How could the man who held her hand at the altar be the same one hiding such a secret? She wasn't angry because of his identity. She was broken because of the deceit. She wanted to understand, to confront him and demand an explanation. But she also feared his reaction. His temper was something she had glimpsed before, controlled in public, but sharp and intimidating in private. On the third night, her emotions became too heavy to contain. She decided she couldn't live in silence anymore. When Khalid returned from another of his late-night absences, she was waiting for him. The room was dimly lit, the city's glow seeping through the curtains. He looked at her and immediately sensed the confrontation he had been dreading. Though no words were exchanged, her expression told him everything. He walked past her, trying to appear composed, but inside, panic began to rise. He went to check his phone, and when he saw that his messages with Omar had been opened, a cold wave of fear washed over him. For a man like Khalid, reputation meant more than anything. In his world, image and honor were sacred. Exposure of such a scandal could destroy his business empire, ruin his family's name, and make him an outcast in his own community. His thoughts began to spiral. He imagined the media headlines, the humiliation, the judgment from those who once respected him. As he stood there staring into the mirror, rage mixed with desperation, he told himself he had to regain control, no matter the cost. Layla could feel the shift in the air, the storm building inside him. Her instinct told her to leave, to escape before things turned worse. She quietly packed a few of her belongings and kept her passport in her purse, planning to fly back home the next morning. But when she turned around, Khalid was there, standing behind her. His expression was unreadable, his voice cold and measured. The confrontation that followed was not a heated exchange of words, but a terrifying unraveling of emotions. In a moment of blind fury, he grabbed her. The struggle was brief, chaotic, and violent. Layla's cry echoed through the suite before it was abruptly silenced. When Khalid stepped back, the reality of what he had done hit him like a crushing wave. Layla lay motionless on the floor, blood pooling beneath her head where it had struck the marble edge of the coffee table. He froze, unable to comprehend the scene before him. Minutes passed like hours as the truth sank in. The woman he had married, The one who had loved him despite his flaws was gone, and the secret he had tried so hard to protect had now destroyed everything. Khalid stood in silence for what felt like eternity, staring at Layla's lifeless body sprawled across the cold marble floor. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on him like a suffocating fog. His breathing grew shallow, and his mind raced between disbelief and panic. He wanted to convince himself it was an accident, that he hadn't meant for things to go this far. But the bruises on her neck and the pool of blood told a different story. Every second that passed felt louder than the last, echoing in the quiet luxury of the hotel suite. The first instinct that kicked in was survival. Khalid's entire life had been built on control of his image, his business, and his emotions. He knew that one misstep could destroy everything he had worked for. In a matter of moments, he began constructing a plan. He carefully wiped his fingerprints from the surfaces she had touched, moved her phone out of sight, and rearranged the furniture to make the room appear undisturbed. Then, he changed her clothes, dressing her in a silk gown to make her look as though she had simply been getting ready for bed. He told himself over and over that this would be seen as a tragic accident, that no one would ever know what really happened. He placed her body near the bathroom, scattered a few drops of water on the floor, and smashed a perfume bottle to create the illusion of a fall. His movements were mechanical, driven by fear rather than reason. When everything was in place, he called the hotel reception in a panicked tone, claiming his wife had slipped and wasn't breathing. Within minutes, staff members rushed into the suite. Khalid played his part perfectly, crying, shouting for help, and pretending to be in shock. The authorities arrived soon after, and paramedics pronounced Layla dead at the scene. Khalid's performance continued flawlessly. He clutched her body, his face buried in his hands, portraying the image of a heartbroken husband. But as the initial chaos settled, subtle inconsistencies began to appear. The paramedics noticed the marks on her arms that didn't match the story of a fall. The police quietly photographed everything, their eyes trained on details that Khalid hoped they wouldn't notice. Hours later, the body was taken for examination, and Khalid was escorted to give a statement. He repeated the same story. She had slipped while coming out of the bathroom. But the detectives weren't convinced. Layla's phone, recovered from the suite, contained the screenshots of the messages between Khalid and Omar. The discovery changed the course of the investigation instantly. Forensic results revealed evidence of a struggle and bruises consistent with forceful contact. The timeline Khalid provided didn't align with security footage from the hotel, which showed him leaving and returning at suspicious hours. By the next morning, detectives quietly summoned Omar for questioning. His nervous responses and emotional breakdown exposed the truth Khalid had buried for years. The story spread rapidly across Dubai's media, turning the once respected businessman into a national scandal. The narrative of a grieving husband quickly began to unravel, replaced by whispers of deception, forbidden love, and murder. Khalid's world, built on lies and appearances, was collapsing faster than he could contain it. The courtroom in Dubai was packed beyond capacity on the day Khalid Al Mansoor's trial began. Journalists from across the region filled every corner, their cameras flashing as the once celebrated millionaire entered in handcuffs. His expensive suit and polished shoes could not disguise the exhaustion in his face. The calm, confident expression he was known for had been replaced by hollow eyes that betrayed sleepless nights and a growing fear of what awaited him. The story had already spread far beyond the Gulf. An Arab millionaire accused of killing his wife on their honeymoon after she discovered his affair with another man. The world watched in fascination and horror as the truth unfolded piece by piece. The prosecution presented a chilling narrative of greed, deception, and pride. They detailed how Khalid had lived a secret life, maintaining an intimate relationship with a man named Omar, while presenting himself as a symbol of conservative values. They showed evidence of Layla's discovery, the screenshots, the timeline, and the forensic reports that proved her death could not have been accidental. Every detail painted Khalid not as a grieving husband, but as a man cornered by his own lies, who chose violence to silence the one person who had uncovered his truth. Omar's testimony was the turning point. He sat before the court trembling, tears streaming down his face as he recounted years of hidden love, secrecy, and fear. He confessed how Khalid often spoke about the pressure from his family to marry and maintain appearances. He described the arguments leading up to the wedding and how Khalid promised to handle everything once the marriage was secure. His words struck the courtroom like thunder. Layla's family wept silently, their faces etched with pain as they listened to the details of betrayal and murder. Khalid's defense team tried to paint a different picture, claiming that the death was an accident caused by an emotional argument. They argued that Layla had slipped in the heat of the moment and that Khalid's secrecy was a result of social pressure, not malice. But the evidence was overwhelming: the bruises on her body, the staged crime scene, and the panic-driven cover-up. Witnesses from the hotel staff testified about hearing muffled noises from the suite and seeing Khalid acting suspiciously afterward. When the verdict was finally read, the courtroom fell silent. Khalid Al Mansoor was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. The judge's words echoed through the chamber as Khalid lowered his head, finally realizing that his life of control, wealth, and reputation had ended. His empire crumbled overnight. Business partners withdrew their investments, his family publicly disowned him, and the Al Mansoor name, once associated with prestige, became a symbol of disgrace. Layla's body was flown back to Lebanon, where thousands attended her funeral. Her followers online turned her social media pages into memorials filled with messages of grief and anger. The story became more than a crime. It became a warning about the dangers of deceit and the tragic cost of living behind masks. Khalid spent his days in silence within the prison walls, haunted by the memory of the woman he destroyed and the truth he tried to bury. The man who once lived surrounded by luxury now sat in a small gray cell, a prisoner not only of justice but of his own guilt. The tragedy in Dubai ended with a powerful message that no amount of wealth or reputation could hide the consequences of a life built on lies.